on the 22nd of August 2016. This will be the first major political exchange between India and Myanmar following the swearing in of the new National League for Democracy government led by Daw Aung San Suu Kyi in Myanmar. EM will be accompanied by Foreign Secretary and other officials from MEA. During her visit, EM will be calling on His Excellency U Tin Cha, the President of the Republic of the Union on Myanmar, and holding discussions with Daw Aung San Suu Kyi, State Councillor and Foreign Minister of Myanmar. Discussions are expected to focus on the rich bilateral content of the relationship, as well as plans for the upcoming BRICS-BIMSTEC Outreach Summit in India, building on the comprehensive discussions during Foreign Office consultations held in New Delhi on August 9, 2016. India and Myanmar share close relations with a robust development cooperation program in areas such as agriculture, IT, human resource development, infrastructure development, culture, etc. The visit reaffirms India's commitment to heighten partnership with Myanmar in areas accorded priority by the new government of Myanmar. My second announcement, His Excellency Mr. Mevlut Çavuşoğlu, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Turkey, will be visiting India from the 18th to the 20th of August 2016. This is the first official visit to India of Minister Çavuşoğlu, who was in India on a transit halt last year when he met Honorable External Affairs Minister. During the visit, Honorable Minister for External Affairs will be holding talks with Minister Çavuşoğlu on the 19th of August, that is tomorrow. The entire gamut of bilateral relations, as well as multilateral and regional issues, is likely to be discussed during the talks. Additionally, Minister Çavuşoğlu is scheduled to call on Honorable Vice President of India on the 19th of August. He is also scheduled to visit Hyderabad on 20th August to officially open the Turkish consulate building. India and Turkey enjoy deep-rooted ties. Our bilateral relations have been sustained and strengthened through regular high-level exchanges. Bilateral trade is also increasing and touched $6.3 billion last year. We hope that the visit of the Turkish Foreign Minister will further strengthen India-Turkey bilateral ties. My last announcement, Her Excellency Ms. Delcy Rodriguez, Minister of External Affairs of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, arrived yesterday on an official visit to India. She is accompanied by a 14-member delegation, including the Venezuelan Minister of Petroleum and President of PDVSA, His Excellency Mr. Eulogio Del Pino, and Venezuelan Vice Minister for Asia, Middle East, and Oceania, His Excellency Mr. Felix Plasencia. Later today, she will meet with the Honorable External Affairs Minister, Srimati Sushma Swaraj. India and Venezuela have warm and cordial ties, and the two ministers are expected to review the full gamut of bilateral cooperation. I'll be able to update you on more details following the meeting, which is expected at, I think, 6 o'clock this evening. So that concludes my announcements. The floor is now open for questions. Vinita?
Vikas, can you give us a clarity on the Foreign Secretary's visit to Islamabad, and what is the agenda on table? Will we talk Kashmir, or will we talk terrorism? Is he going? Just a clarity on that.
Since, as you say, there is still some confusion on this issue, let me share with you what we have communicated to Pakistan. In a letter dated August 16, Foreign Secretary has first of all underlined that Pakistan's self-serving allegations made in their communication are rejected in their entirety by the government of India. Pakistan has no locus standi in respect of Jammu and Kashmir, which is an integral part of our nation. Foreign Secretary then went on to mention that the world is aware that Pakistan has a long history of violence and terrorism against India, as also in the broader region. The Indian state of Jammu and Kashmir has been its particular target. This record began with the government of Pakistan sending armed raiders into Jammu and Kashmir in 1947 and was repeated in 1965. More than 3 decades later, displaying a similar attitude, military personnel were infiltrated across the line of control in Kargil in 1999. This approach to India was reflected in support for terrorist activities in Jammu and Kashmir that continues to the present day. These acts were initially denied by the government of Pakistan and attributed to the local population, only to be admitted later by Pakistan's leaders who directed and organized such cross-border attacks on India and assaults on the local people. The government of Pakistan is aware that the framework for interactions between India and Pakistan is stipulated by the Shimla Agreement of July 1972, wherein President Zulfikar Ali Bhutto agreed that the two countries resolve to settle their differences by peaceful means through bilateral negotiations, as also the Lahore Declaration of February 1999, wherein Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif reiterated Pakistan's determination to implement the Shimla Agreement in letter and spirit. They are also based on the assurance given by President Musharraf in January 2004 that he will not permit any territory under Pakistan's control to be used to support terrorism in any manner. Keeping this in mind, Foreign Secretary conveyed that he accepts his counterpart's invitation to visit Islamabad, but made it clear that naturally the discussions should focus first on the more pressing aspects of the Jammu and Kashmir situation that include: 1. Cessation of cross-border terrorism by Pakistan aimed at Jammu and Kashmir. 2. Ending incitement to violence and terrorism from Pakistan in Jammu and Kashmir. 3. Detaining and prosecuting internationally recognized Pakistani terrorist leaders who have been publicly active recently in exhorting and supporting such violence in that state. 4. Closing down of Pakistani terrorist camps where terrorists such as Bahadur Ali, recently arrested in Jammu and Kashmir, continue to be trained. 5. Denying safe haven, shelters and support to terrorists in Pakistan who have escaped Indian law. Foreign Secretary also said that he looks forward to discussing with his counterpart the earliest possible vacation of Pakistan's illegal occupation of the Indian state of Jammu and Kashmir. Foreign Secretary also underlined the importance of bringing to justice all those guilty in Pakistan for the Mumbai terrorist attack of 2008 and the Pathankot air base attack. He said that his visit should provide the opportunity to receive a briefing from Pakistan's Foreign Secretary on progress in this regard. So I hope this clarifies in no uncertain terms our response to Pakistan's offer for talks. Aditya?
On Balochistan issue, Tariq Fatemi, Special Assistant to the Premier of Pakistan, has commented yesterday. He has said that Prime Minister Modi's statement has crossed the red line and could, in fact, set back the relations between India and Pakistan to no, repairable measure. And also, just half an hour back, Nafeez Zakaria has, in fact, held a press conference in Pakistan where he has said that, Jitendra Singh, the MOSPMO, speaking about POK again and again, is only, against the UN resolution on Kashmir. How do you react to this?
Well, you have referred to the red lines. I find this an extraordinary remark from a senior Pakistani functionary that recognizes no red lines in the conduct of its own diplomacy. I mean, Pakistan's record of cross-border terrorism as an infiltration is at the heart of the problems in the region today. And this is not just India's view. You can ask some other countries in the region as well. Yeah, Parikshit.
Sir, after the Prime Minister's speech on Independence Day, what is the status as far as Mr. Jaitley's visit to Pakistan for the SAARC summit is concerned? And what about the Prime Minister's visit in November?
Well, as far as the SAARC finance ministers meeting is concerned, all I can say is that as of now, no decision has been taken as yet on the level of our participation in that particular meeting. And as far as Prime Minister's visit to Pakistan for the SAARC summit is concerned, you would appreciate that decisions and announcements of such nature are not made so much far in advance. Yeah, Sridhar.
Sir, you had mentioned a few days ago that you are looking into the requests put forth by Turkey to take action against organizations or educational institutions which are affiliated to Gulen. So what is the progress on that after initial stock taking? Has the MEA arrived at some conclusion?
No.
And how much will this be a factor of discussion between Ms. Swaraj and the Turkish Foreign Minister?
Well, I cannot prejudge what the two ministers will discuss. If this is an important issue for Turkey, then I assume that this will be raised by the Turkish foreign minister. Insofar as the allegations that have been made to us by Turkish ambassador and consul general here, I already mentioned in my briefing that we are looking into it. At the same time, as you know, we are not an investigative agency, so obviously that information has been passed on to the relevant authorities who will of course, make their own investigations, and once the outcome of those investigations is clear, then only we can decide on the further course of action. Akhilesh.
So, as I understand, the Deputy Prime Minister of Nepal is also here in Delhi.
So, who the Deputy Prime Minister of Nepal?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, can you elaborate something
Yeah.
about his programs and also the decisions?
India, as you know, shares unique centuries-old ties with Nepal. Our age-old ties have been nurtured by regular high-level exchanges. The visit of the Special Envoy of Prime Minister of Nepal, Mr. Bimalendra Nidhi, who's the Deputy Prime Minister and the Minister of Home Affairs, will be the first high-level visit from Nepal to India after the formation of the new government in Nepal under Right Honourable Prime Minister Pushpa Kamal Dahal Prachand. The visit of the Special Envoy, Shri Bimalendra Nidhi, provides an opportunity to understand the priorities of the new government and to discuss ways in which we could strengthen our multifaceted ties with Nepal. India attaches the highest priority to its relations with Nepal and looks forward to working closely with the new government.
The issue was, as you said, was raised during the meeting.
Yeah.
Does India feel that it has made any progress in bringing China around its view on this issue?
Okay. Well, as I have already mentioned after the meeting that His Excellency Mr. Wang Yi had with the External Affairs Minister, that the NSG issue was discussed in considerable detail by the two sides. We once again underlined the importance that we attach to India's membership in light of our clean energy requirements, which were reinforced during the INDCs in COP21. The Chinese side explained their perspective, but at the end, both sides agreed that we must continue discussions so that we can, narrow down the areas of divergence. And in this context, the head of disarmament affairs of the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs, who was the lead negotiator in Seoul at the time of the NSG plenary, would be visiting India to meet our Joint Secretary, Disarmament and International Security Affairs, Mr. Amandeep Gill. And we look forward to those discussions and to, reaching better understanding with China on this very important issue. Yes, Ritu.
Could you elaborate on some of the connectivity projects that we are going to discuss with Myanmar, if at all, when EAM goes there?
No, as I said, let the visit happen. As has been the practice, we always do give a readout of the important discussions that are held. And as you know, with Myanmar, we have the Kaladan multimodal project and other projects as well. So I'm pretty sure that those projects will be discussed. More importantly, I think this visit will provide an opportunity for us to hear firsthand what are the priorities of the new government, which direction they want to take Indian development cooperation in. I gave a readout earlier also where, she had a discussion with another Indian functionary, and she had outlined, what are the areas that she is looking at, rubberized roads, solar energy, and things like that. So I think the discussions happen between EAM and Aung San Suu Kyi, and I'll give you a full readout after that. I will myself be going on that visit. At the back, and then Kalolia.
Sir, any update on the priest who was abducted in March in Yemen?
Father Tom, unfortunately, I'm sorry to say I have no update. We continue to make every effort to ensure his safe and early release. We are in touch with all the relevant players in this regard, but I have no fresh update to share with you. Kalol.
So last October, you said that India has always been a home to persecuted people from all over the world. Now, this 15th August, the Prime Minister himself spoke about the support that and love that he has received from Balochistan, people of Balochistan. Certain Baloch groups are seeking a sort of recognition from India. They're also talking about forming a government in exile with support from India.
Look, I
what
think
would you say to them? I mean, if they reach out to you.
First of all, I think let us not jump the gun. Let us understand, first of all, the context in which Prime Minister made the comments that you are referring to. Several people from Balochistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, including Gilgit-Baltistan, had messaged him had been writing to him following his comments at the all-party meeting on the 12th of August, in which he had flagged the atrocities being committed on the people of Balochistan. Prime Minister had been thanked by these people for flagging their cause in the all-party meeting, which, as you know, represents all political segments in India. Prime Minister was sufficiently moved by these messages of gratitude to share it with the people of India at his Independence Day address. As far as the next course of action is concerned, Prime Minister also gave us certain instructions, as you know, in the all-party meeting. How those instructions will be implemented, I cannot at this stage share with you. However, MEA will do what it has to do, because after all, the people of Pakistan-occupied Kashmir are also our people.
Are India and Myanmar likely to discuss the fate of over 5,000 Indian refugees who are in Delhi?
Well, as you know, those refugees are being dealt with under a particular program, and I think we remain responsible, of course, for their welfare. Whether this issue will figure in the discussions or not, I cannot at this stage say that. We cannot prejudge the outcome of any meeting before it has taken place. Yeah.
फ्राइडे को जब ऑल पार्टी मीटिंग हुई थी उसमें प्राइम मिनिस्टर ने जब बलूचिस्तान का जिक्र किया था, उसके बाद में अरुण जेटली जी और राजनाथ सिंह जी की जो पीसी हुई उसमें उन्होंने कहा कि बलूचिस्तान का इशू उठाने के बाद उसका जो एक्सटर्नल इम्पैक्ट होगा वो MEA एलेबोरेट करेगा। तो ये जो हम लोग बलूचिस्तान का इशू उठा रहे हैं, इसका एक्सटर्नल इम्पैक्ट क्या होगा, उसको आप एलेबोरेट करेंगे?
उन्होंने ये नहीं कहा था कि MEA कब एलेबोरेट करेगा। तो जब MEA को एलैबोरेट करने के लिए होगा तब हम एलैबोरेट करेंगे। See, diplomacy is not instantaneous. It's not instant noodles. No, आपका टर्न हो चुका है, रंजीत।
Pakistan has denied permission to UNHRC team to visit POK. What is your reaction on that?
I think I have something for you there. Well, as you would have already seen the press release that has been issued by the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, in which he has expressed regret that he has not been able to be granted access to Pakistan-occupied Kashmir and to the Indian state of Jammu and Kashmir. As far as our position is there, we have made it very clear that we have first of all engaged very constructively with the High Commissioner for Human Rights in Geneva. We have also pointed out to him the correct picture of developments in Jammu and Kashmir, and also how institutions of India, which includes our judiciary, our vibrant press, our active civil society, our very active parliament, all these institutions have already kicked in order to bring normalcy to the state of Jammu and Kashmir as early as possible, despite the continuing provocation, infiltration, and support to terrorism from across our borders. The fact that Pakistan has not allowed permission to the United Nations Human Rights Commissioner to visit Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, where, as you know, people have been denied their basic freedoms, I think is a message in itself.
In relation with the visit of the Foreign Affairs Minister of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez, and the next month meeting of summit of the non-aligned movement, is it true that still the government is evaluating if Prime Minister Narendra Modi will attend or not that meeting?
Yeah, I can say that the decision on the level of our participation in the non-aligned movement has not yet been taken. Having said that, let me also make it very clear that we attach the highest importance to the non-aligned movement. We believe its principles remain relevant in today's day and age as well. In fact, India has taken the lead in reorienting the focus of NAM, because as you know, it started off with anti-apartheid, decolonization, things like that. And now in the 21st century, the world is facing a different set of challenges. And India has always played a very active role in all NAM deliberations. I mean, we are one of the leaders in NAM, and we will continue to shape the agenda of NAM in positive ways. Ashish, then Manish. Okay, at the back.
सर जस्ट फॉर क्लैरिटी सेक आपने कहा कि फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर की सार्क के लिए विजिट पर अभी कोई फैसला नहीं हुआ है। 2 दिन पहले तक ऐसी रिपोर्ट्स थी कि डिसाइड हो गया और फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर नहीं जाएंगे, उनको रिप्रेजेंट ऑफिशियल लेवल पे किया जाएगा। क्या डिसाइड हो गया है कि फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर नहीं जाएंगे या फैसला नहीं होगा?
अगर डिसाइड हो गया है तो फिर मैं क्यों नहीं अनाउंस करूँगा? मनीष।
सर NIA ने अभी जम्मू कश्मीर में कुछ टेररिस्ट केस के इन्वेस्टिगेशन के दौरान ये पाया है कि पाकिस्तान बहुत सारे ऐसे टेरर संबंधित जो लोग हैं उनको दूसरे कंट्रीज़ में फ़र्जी पासपोर्ट बना के फिर उनको इंडिया भेज रहा है ताकि यहाँ पर वो टेररिस्ट एक्टिविटी कर सके। क्या इस संबंध में आपसे कुछ शेयर किया गया है और क्या कोई मैकेनिज़्म है जिससे इसको ट्रेस आउट किया जा सके?
नहीं, देखिए, पाकिस्तान जो निरंतर घुसपैठ कर रहा है और जो करता रहा है वो तो सर्वविदित है। बहादुर अली, जिसको हम लोग ने अभी हाल में ही में पकड़ा है, वो तो इसका एक तरह से जीता जागता सबूत ही है कि पाकिस्तान अपनी ये जो नापाक इरादे हैं उसमें अभी भी आगे बढ़ा चला जा रहा है। तो ये कि जो आप बता रहे हैं, आई एम श्योर हमारे सिक्योरिटी एजेंसीज़ उस पर नज़र रखे हुए हैं, और अगर हमारे पास इसके बारे में कोई और अधिक जानकारी आएगी जो हम आपके साथ शेयर कर सकते हैं तो ज़रूर करेंगे। या एट द बैक देयर,
Because
Sheila, yeah.
Foreign Secretary has sent this letter to his
Correct.
counterpart on 16th.
No, he wrote it on the 16th. This was delivered yesterday by our High Commissioner in Islamabad to the Pak Foreign Office.
Is there any response to it?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Do you expect the response?
Well, the ball is in Pakistan's court. They made an offer. We have responded to that offer. Now it's up to them how to carry this forward.
Thank you.
Shailendra.
सर, सर्विंग आर्मी चीफ दलबीर सिंह सुहाग ने एलिगेशंस लगाए हैं MOS VK सिंह पर। इस पे आप कुछ क्लैरिटी देना चाहेंगे उनकी तरफ से?
ये मुझे विदेश नीति का मामला नहीं लग रहा है। Ian.
Just wondered if the delegation for the United Nations General Assembly has been finalized yet?
Well, it has been, but I'm not in a position to announce it yet. Charu?
I understand it was decided during the meeting between the Chinese foreign minister and EM that a new mechanism involving the foreign secretaries to discuss various aspects of the relationship would be set up. Could you just help us understand what the mechanism, what specific areas the mechanism will look at, and whether there will be any overlap vis-a-vis that and the special representatives' work and so on and so forth?
Look, I mean, we already have sectoral mechanisms for looking at various aspects. I mean, the special representatives, for instance, look at the border issue and things like that, and then you have joint working groups handling various aspects, of the trade, commerce, investment, on the military side, etc. So the task, I think, of the foreign secretary and the vice minister from the Chinese side will be to provide a sort of overall perspective, look at India-China relations in their overall perspective, because as you know, they are people who have a sort of bird's eye view of all of government, so to speak. So the idea is not to be restrictive, but to have an open agenda and all issues of mutual concern and interest between India and China can be taken up by them without, of course, necessarily overlapping or duplicating functions which are already being done by sectoral bodies. Arunim.
So I understand MOS VK Singh is again on a visit to Saudi Arabia. Can you give us some details of what's happened?
Yeah. As you are aware, the welfare of Indian workers in Saudi Arabia is an important priority of the government at this current point in time. You're also aware of the recent difficulties faced by Indian workers belonging mainly to 3 Saudi companies, Saudi Ojar, Saudi Bin Laden, and the Saad Group. Following the high-level discussions that MOS General VK Singh had with Saudi authorities during his visit to Saudi Arabia in July, the Saudi authorities took a magnanimous view of the situation and had agreed to the speedy repatriation of those Indian workers wishing to return to India, and also assisting those workers wishing to relocate to other companies in Saudi Arabia. Now, the important thing to remember is no third option is available to Indian workers belonging to these 3 companies. So MOS General VK Singh is in Saudi Arabia as we speak, because there are some issues which need to be addressed so that the retrenched workers either seek alternate employment or return to India, because some people are not wanting to exercise either of these 2 options. So he's there to try and reach out to them, to impress upon them to cooperate and facilitate in this process. As you know, a second batch of Indian workers, 47 in number, also returned to India on, I think it was on Wednesday. And MOS has gone there really to speed up the whole process and to ensure that no one is left in a limbo, because apart from these 2 options, there is no third option available. Either you take a repatriation back to India or you take a relocation. And also, currently this is available only to workers belonging to these 3 Indian companies, to these 3 Saudi companies, not to other Saudi companies, because they are not facing any difficulties. The difficulties being faced by the Indian workers were on account of their employment with these 3 companies, where, you know, in some cases even food had been stopped. Okay, I think all of you are keen to file your copies at the back.
Sir, some state governments, including Kerala, allege that they are not getting right information from MEA about the persons who are returning. Yesterday, Minister also made allegations like this.
I'm surprised. As you know, we have a full-fledged states division in MEA whose only task is to liaise with state governments. And I remember when the first batch of 26 workers came, all the state governments by JS states had been informed. And in fact, they had made arrangements for their onward travel once they landed in Delhi, because some of the workers were from Lucknow, somebody was from someplace else, and the Saudi flight came from Jeddah directly into Delhi. So I would definitely not agree with that statement. I believe there is very close coordination, particularly under this government, between MEA and the state governments. And JS states, I mean, his number is available with all the resident commissioners, and he's just a phone call away. So I would not like to speculate on why, according to you, there has been a miscommunication or lack of coordination. The whole purpose of States Division is to coordinate, and it's in our interest as well. If the workers are arriving and they need to be taken further to their respective hometowns, then it is the job of the state governments ready to do that. Okay, I think that concludes this press briefing. Thank you all.